Moby Dick, chapter 46 and onward. I think that's where we are. We'll give everybody a chance to roll in and let us know. There's no music on these streams because we don't want to risk the YouTube takedown thing from having music. It's very unreliable since they started using different algorithms. Yay. So, are we live? We should be live, but we'll find out momentarily. Live reactions and the slow mode set to 10. Okay, let's go. Welcome, Groovy Mariachi. Totally a shark and rando person. Okay. So, before we get started, a few things that we need to run through here. I've been trying to get this kind of roughly cleaned up and set up, and it's coming along, but it's not, done. Okay, so this actually should be like that. This one we're removing. We're gonna... Okay. Everything's a mess here. Anvil goes here. Okay. It is going to be a reading stream. Let's get ready to read. Woo! We're just getting set up. Making sure everything is roughly where it needs to be. As we get ready to read. Okay. Boy, some of these are really messed up. Oh, this is going to be a whole thing here. Look at all this inventory space I have to manage, too. Okay. Cool. Okay, so that's going there. Here. Oh, gosh. The anvil can go on top of the other anvil. Bed can go here. Ender chest, stone cutter. Furnace over here. Chests. Thrigeness says, Joe, thanks to you I had pinball on in the background all day. It's a lot of fun, pinball. I like it. We are just trying to get frantically organized here so we can get our stream started. This has gotten out of control. Why do I have so much nonsense? Okay, fishing rod going in there. Fortune pick going in there. Actually, I think we need the rest of this stuff right now. We have all this extra fireworks, which for right now we're gonna just put in with the armor, I guess. I don't know. Gotta do something with it. It's a problem. The potion making supplies box is missing. That's always fantastic. Welcome, Eggshell Rabbit. There's the brewed potions. There's the potion making supplies box. Okay. That looks right to me. Toss the dirt in here, toss the extra underpearls in here. Extra buckets go in here. Oh, I don't know about obsidian. Let's just put it in with the lava. That kind of makes some sense. We need to free up enough inventory space that we can actually go mining while we read. That is the current project. Okay. Okay. A lot of extra iron, a couple extra anvils. Okay. We're also not doing great on food. That's a recurring problem that I have not solved. Okay, extra torch can go up there. Okay. Putting these boxes away. Okay. So, food-wise, I feel like we bought a bunch of fish. Where did we cook it? We put it in furnaces somewhere, right? I feel like we must have. Was it back here? You're drowned underneath there. That's not ideal. I mean, it's arguably kind of fine-ish, but it's not ideal. Okay, this place is a mess. Standardize, standardize. Okay. Okay. Of course, this one doesn't have water in front of it. It does have this, though. Yes. Okay, great. Okay. Are these full of food? Okay. We bought a whole bunch of fish, and I feel like we put them in furnaces somewhere, and I have no idea where. And that's just going to drive me nuts. Okay. We've made peace with that. There's a fox. That fox is not a fish. Berries are food. We can eat the berries. Okay. Whatever. We're doing it live. Okay, these two are going in there. Pulling out the bone meal one to shove bones in there. Illumination and scaffolding. Let's throw the extra coal in there. Yep. Maybe we'll grab this extra coal as well for later. That's kind of consolidating. Welcome, Casey Squared. Yeah, we're about to start reading Moby Dick. I'm just trying to get organized enough that we can actually just start terraforming without me being interrupted all the time by being upset. And, yeah, we're not quite there. We're close. We're getting close. Sandstone and carpet. Well, that's good to know. Where did I put those furnaces with the fish in them? I didn't put them in the nether, I don't think. I didn't put them over here, did I? No. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, yeah, because I turned the render distance way up for the parade. It's a little bit laggier than usual over here. Which is fine, it's just not, you know, optimal. I didn't put the uncooked fish in here. No. They wouldn't have gone in my wallet. They didn't go in the glass box. TCG, did I put them randomly in my TCG kit? Because I was like, oh, I've got extra room. No. Scaffolds and torches? Nope. Golf bag. Did I put the fish in my golf bag? No. Trial chamber gear? Well, there's some extra potatoes in there. We'll call that good enough. Okay. Cool. I think we are ready to go. Let's go. What do I have to do to start the stream? Okay, we need to send people a reminder that this is a viewer-supported stream. We are $9 away from the next phase camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. I'm down here in slot 9, putting the hot in the hot bar. Once we start reading Moby Dick, we won't be acknowledging tips necessarily until like the logical break points, either in the middle of a chapter or at the end of the chapter. Not in the middle of a paragraph, not in the middle of a sentence. So, what else do I need to remind people? Oh yeah, chapter 46. I need to post the what we're reading link. We're going to pin that in the Twitch chat. Pin that in the YouTube chat. Pin that in the Discord chat. Whew. It has been a long day, y'all. I had about an hour and a half interview for someone's YouTube channel where they interview people. I had a parade float build contest. I had a bunch of random stuff. And also, I was walking around in the heat a lot, which I still haven't recovered for. It was so hot out today. It was 93, but felt like 104, according to the app. I don't know how accurate that app is, but it felt like 104. So, I mean, that part didn't seem wrong. Yeah, an interview. Yeah. So there's Small Cats has a YouTube interview channel and asked me to participate in an interview. And I saw that Small Cats was followed by Janie Laney on Twitter. And I was like, Janie, what up with this Small Cats? Is this a small cat that's legit? And Janie's like, oh yeah, that small cat is most legitimate. And so I was like, okay. So then I had an interview with Small Cats. You know what? Oh, I remember where I left most of the stone boxes. I left them in that labyrinth over there. Let's go get that. So Small Cats says that interview will be published in about 2 weeks, sometime in the next 2 weeks. I will link the interview when it's posted, yes. Is this... No, that's not the one. Is this the one? Yes. This is the one. One of these boxes I put a ton of ender chests into. That was a mistake. It was a mistake to put... Or not ender chests, shulkers. It was a mistake to randomly put a bunch of shulkers in one of these boxes. Okay. Okay. So we're going to need to basically go down along there for that. Is there... I put one of these right here. I think we're going to end up putting these along here. Whew. Yeah, thanks for your patience while we set up the stream, everybody. Like I said, coming back in from being out in the heat, I tried, like, I'm going to just sit in bed and chill for a little bit. And it's, whew, took a lot out of me. Okay. So this arc here, we need to mark out roughly the area we're going to be digging. So... Oh. Is this a partially completed beacon as well? Yeah, that is not a completed beacon. An ender chest is better than nothing, and we will put a few other things there real quick too. Okay. Okay. So this part's gonna be super weird here. This is like exactly the sort of area that needs a beacon too, now that I'm looking at it. Okay. So we're gonna go grab a further out beacon from down this way, I guess. I will never find this hole again. Or escape from it. Okay. Was there anything else in there that that goes in there. Let's see, we need ender pearls. Those are in the golf bag. Now the problem is, can we find that hole ever again? We need to go enlarge that so we can find it, because that's a lot of iron. I'm guessing it's roughly aligned with that one. Oh boy. Is it this one? No. 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 It's that way. Apparently there's a zombie down there too. Let's mark that hole when we find it. Where is it exactly? Did I walk right over it? Yes. We need to mark this somehow with one of our many recognizable blocks. There, that's kind of recognizable. It's not a good idea, but it'll work. Okay. So, 22 minutes into the stream, and we're almost set up. Okay, that's fine. We're doing okay. That's all right. So there's a beacon that we set up over here. That we don't have. There it is down there. Okay, so redstone box 2. First off, we're going to put one of these here. And take one of these out. He's 2. Second, where's the wool box? We are going to grab 3 green wool. Also, let's consolidate this carpet into the wool box there. Look at that, we're getting stuff done. Woo! Okay. It's fine, whatever, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so this should be close enough to this area over here that we can actually start mining there. Okay. Great. Yeah, this is still all loaded. I feel like we are ready to take down the setting up stream sign and start reading chapter 46 of Moby Dick. Surmises. Just as a reminder before we get started, we are 11 away from our next face camera expansion milestone. If you appreciate this sort of stream, your financial support is always appreciated. Whew. Oh my gosh. After 3 weeks of missing the Saturday night streams, I gotta say, the heat really beat me up today, but I made it. I'm here, and I'm gonna read chapter 46 of Moby Dick. Okay. Chapter 46 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Surmises. Though consumed with the hot fire of his purpose, Ahab, in all his thoughts and actions, ever had in view the ultimate capture of Moby Dick. Though he seemed ready to sacrifice all mortal interests to that one passion, nevertheless, it may have been that he was by nature and long habitation far too wedded to a fiery whaleman's ways altogether to abandon the collateral prosecution of the voyage. Or, at least if this were otherwise, there were not wanting other motives much more influential with him. It would be refining too much, perhaps, even considering his monomania, to hint that his vindictiveness toward the white whale might have possibly extended itself in some degree to all sperm whales, and that the more monsters he slew by so much, the more he multiplied the chances that each subsequently encountered whale would prove to be the hated one he hunted. But if such an hypothesis be indeed exceptionable, there were still additional considerations which, though not strictly according with the wildness of his ruling passion, yet were by no means incapable of swaying him. To accomplish his object, Ahab must use tools, and of all tools used in the shadow of the moon, men are the most apt to get out of order. He knew, for example, that however magnetic his ascendancy in some respects was over Starbuck, yet that ascendancy did not cover the complete spiritual man, any more than mere corporeal superiority involves intellectual mastership. For to the purely spiritual, the intellectual but stand in a sort of corporeal relation. Starbuck's body and Starbuck's coerced will were Ahab's, so long as Ahab kept his magnet at Starbuck's brain. Still, he knew that for all this, the chief mate in his soul abhorred his captain's quest, and could he, would joyfully disengage himself from it, or even frustrate it. It might be that a long interval would elapse ere the white whale was seen. During that long interval, Starbuck would e'er be apt to fall into open relapses of rebellion against his captain's leadership, unless some ordinary, prudential, circumstantial influences were brought to bear upon him. Not only that, but the subtle insanity of Captain Ahab respecting Moby Dick was no ways more significantly manifested than in his superlative sense and shrewdness in foreseeing that, for the present, the hunt should in some way be stripped of that strange imaginative impiousness which naturally invested it, that the full terror of the voyage must be kept withdrawn into the obscure background. For few men's courage is proof against protracted meditation, unrelieved by action. That when they stood their long night watches, his officers and men must have some nearer things to think about than Moby Dick. For however eagerly and impetuously the savage crew had hailed the announcement of his quest, yet all sailors of all sorts are more or less capricious and unreliable. They live in the varying outer weather. They inhale its fickleness, and when retained for any object remote and blank in the pursuit, however promissory of life and passion in the end, it is above all things requisite that temporary interests and employments should intervene and hold them healthily suspended for the final dash. Nor was Ahab unmindful of another thing. In times of strong emotions, mankind disdain all base considerations. But such times are evanescent. The permanent constitutional condition of the manufactured man, thought Ahab, is sordidness. Granting that the white whale fully incites the hearts of this savage crew, and, playing round their savageness, even breeds a certain generous knight-errantism in them, still, while for the love of it they gave chase to Moby Dick, they must also have food for their more common daily appetites. For even the high-lifted and chivalric crusaders of old times were not content to traverse 2,000 miles of land to fight for the Holy Sepulchre without committing burglaries, picking pockets, and gaining other pious prerequisites. By the way, had they been strictly held to their one final and romantic object, that too many of them would have turned from it in disgust. I will not strip these men, thought Ahab, of all hopes of cash. Aye, cash. They may scorn cash now, but let some months go by, and no prospective promise of it to them. And then this same quiescent cash, all at once, mutinying in them, this same cash would soon cashier Ahab. Nor was there wanting still another precautionary motive more related to Ahab personally. Having impulsively, it is probable, and perhaps somewhat prematurely revealed the prime but private purpose of the Pequod's voyage, Ahab was now entirely conscious that in doing so, he had indirectly laid himself open to the unanswerable charge of usurpation, and with perfect impunity, both moral and legal. His crew, if so deposed, and to that end, competent, could refuse all further obedience to him, and even violently wrest from him the command. From even the barely hinted imputation of usurpation and the possible consequences of such a suppressed impression gaining ground, Ahab must of course have been most anxious to protect himself. That protection could only consist in his own predominating brain and heart and hand, backed by a heedful, closely calculating attention to every minute atmospheric influence which it was possible for his crew to be subjected to. For all these reasons, then, and others, perhaps too analytic to be verbally developed here, Ahab plainly saw that he must still, in a good degree, continue true to the natural, nominal purpose of the Pequod's voyage. Observe all customary usages, and not only that, but force himself to evince all his well-known passionate interest in the general pursuit of his profession. Be all this as it may, his voice was now often heard hailing the three mastheads and admonishing them to keep a bright lookout and not omit reporting even a porpoise. This vigilance was not long without reward. And that concludes chapter 46 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Surmises. Alrighty, folks, what did you think of that chapter? It feels like a lot of this book is written like the author keeps realizing after he wrote the previous chapter, like, oh, the reader's going to be like, wait, why doesn't the crew just mutiny? Because Ahab, basically having stolen the ship, because, like, Ahab doesn't own the ship. He's the captain of the ship, but he's working for the other people that we met earlier. We met the former captains of the Pequod who now own it, right? We met them at the beginning of the book, and Ahab basically has stolen the ship from them and then told the crew that. And so, Melville's like, okay, reader, you're probably like, wait, wasn't that a mistake? Isn't that going to immediately come up? And so Melville's like, don't worry, Ahab has a plan to keep the crew busy. Let's see what it is. Yeah. But, like, I feel like this is a book that wasn't edited in the modern sense, where the editor would be like, oh, there's a bit of a plot hole here. Can you change something? Instead, it's like he would finish reading a chapter and be like, oh, I better write another chapter to explain why the previous chapter wasn't a plot hole. I'm not going to change the previous chapter. That chapter's done. Woodland Juliet says, having not caught up, this is fascinating. I mean, the thing about this is it's like reading Apartment 3G. Like, where it's like, oh man, I haven't read Apartment 3G in a decade. I wonder what's going on. And your friend is like, oh, don't worry, you haven't missed much. It's later that afternoon. Like, this book moves really slow. AB says, this was certainly chapterlicious. I suppose that's a verb. Or an adjective. I don't know. Chapterlicious. So, what I'm thinking about doing here is I'm going to go... Let's pull down that tree there, because that tree I think is going to be in the way anyway. Well, let's get some lumber and make some chests real quick. Then we'll go to bed, and we're going to do some basic inventory management before we start the next chapter, because it's a lot easier to do inventory management when I'm not reading. No mistakes, only happy opportunities. It's too much work to use an eraser. Yeah, that's fair. I get it. If I don't keep the pencil point to the paper, I won't get anything done. Carly Diggs, it says, Joe, I don't catch your streams often. I live in New Zealand, so this my new favorite thing. Your reading and analysis are so satisfying. So the thing is that this is a Saturday night special. So basically, every Saturday, I try to read a novel and talk about it with the chat. So last season, we did Dracula. This season, we are doing Moby Dick. Tonally, very different works, but they're both fun to read and chat about for different reasons. So thank you all for indulging me on this. Okay. So the dirt is going to go in this one. And the other random stuff is going to go in here. Okay. So I need to... So chapter 47 is going to be next. I don't know if I need to update the pinned link. I'm not sure how many people... You know what? Let's update the pinned link. I don't want to be lazy. I'm just... Sorry, guys. I came in from the heat earlier. I was out walking because I'd been inside. I'd been in the garage most of the day working on streams and other YouTube stuff. And I was like, I got to get outside. And Badger's like, let's go out. And I was like, great idea. And it was so hot. And so I'm still like a little bit sitting here and chilling and hydrating. So what we're reading, we're going to pin the new link with the new chapter, which is chapter 47, The Mat Maker. Mat Maker, make me a mat. Okay. So this is going to link up over here. Okay. Let me blow my nose real quick. Get started. Oh, just as a reminder, the camera gets bigger when we hit certain tipping milestones. We are $11 away from our first tipping milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay. So. Chapter 47. The Mat Maker. It was a cloudy, sultry afternoon. The seamen were lazily lounging about the decks, or vacantly gazing over into the lead-colored waters. Queequeg and I were mildly employed, weaving what is called a sword mat for an additional lashing to our boat. So still and subdued, and yet somehow preluding, was all the scene, and such an incantation of reverie lurked in the air that each silent sailor seemed resolved into his own invisible self. I was the attendant or page of Queequeg while busy at the mat, as I kept passing and repassing the filling, or woof, of marlin between the long yarns of the warp, using my own hand for the shuttle, and as Queequeg, standing sideways, ever and anon slid his heavy oaken sword between the threads, and, idly looking off upon the water, carelessly and unthinkingly drove home every yarn, I say, so strange a dreaminess did there then reign all over the ship and all over the sea, only broken by the intermittent dull sound of the sword, that it seemed as if this were the loom of time, and I myself were a shuttle mechanically weaving and weaving away at the fates. There lay the fixed threads of the warp, subject to but one single ever-returning unchanged vibration, and that vibration merely enough to admit of the crosswise interblending of other threads with its own. This warp seemed necessity, and here, thought I, with my own hand I ply my own shuttle and weave my own destiny into these unalterable threads. Meantime, Queequeg's impulsive, indifferent sword, sometimes hitting the woof slantingly, or crookedly, or strongly, or weakly, as the case may be, and by his difference in the concluding blow, and by this difference in the concluding blow, producing a corresponding contrast in the final aspect of the completed fabric. This sword, thought I, which thus finally shapes and fashions both warp and woof, this easy, indifferent sword, must be chance. Aye, chance, free will, and necessity, nowise incompatible, all interweavingly working together. The straight warp of necessity not to be swerved from its ultimate course. Its every alternating vibration, indeed, only tending to that. Free will still in play, free to ply her shuttle between given threads, and chance, though restrained in its play within the right lines of necessity, and sideways in its motions directed by free will, though thus prescribed by both, chance, by turn, rules either, and has the last featuring blow at events. Thus, we were weaving and weaving away when I started at a sound so strange, long drawn, and musically wild and unearthly, that the ball of free will dropped from my hand, and I stood gazing up at the clouds whence that voice dropped like a wing. High and aloft in the cross trees was that mad gay-header Tashtego. His body was reaching eagerly forward, his hand stretched out like a wand, and at brief, sudden intervals, he continued his cries. To be sure, the same sound was that very moment, perhaps being heard all over the seas, from hundreds of whalemen's lookouts perched as high in the air. But from few of those lungs could that accustomed old cry have derived such a marvelous cadence as from Tashtego. As he stood hovering o'er you, half suspended in the air, so wildly and eagerly peering toward the horizon, you would have thought him some prophet or seer beholding the shadows of fate, and by those wild cries announcing their coming.
There she blows! There! 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 She blows! She blows! Where away? On the lee beam, about 2 miles off. A school of them.
Instantly, all was commotion. The sperm whale blows as a clock ticks with the same undeviating and reliable uniformity. And thereby whalemen distinguish this fish from other tribes of his genus.
There go flukes,
Was now the cry from Tashtego, and the whales disappeared. Quick! Stored! Cried Ahab. Time! Time! Doughboy hurried below, glanced at the watch, and reported the exact minute to Ahab. The ship was now kept away from the wind, and she went gently rolling before it. Tashtego reporting that the whales had gone down, heading to leeward. We confidently looked to see them again directly in advance of our bows. For that singular craft, at times evinced by the sperm whale, when, sounding with his head in one direction, he nevertheless, while concealed beneath the surface, mills round and swiftly swims off in the opposite quarter. This deceitfulness of his could not now be in action, for there was no reason to suppose that the fish had seen by Tashtego was in any way alarmed, or indeed knew at all of our vicinity. One of the men selected for the shipkeepers, that is, those not appointed to the boats, by this time relieved Tashtego at the masthead. The sailors at the fore and mizzen had come down, the line tubs were fixed in their places, the cranes were thrust out, the mainyard was backed, and the 3 boats swung over the sea like 3 samphire baskets over high cliffs. Outside of the bulwarks, their eager crews with one hand clung to the rail, while one foot was expectantly poised on the gunwale. So look the long line of man-of-war's men about to throw themselves on board an enemy's ship. But at this critical instant, a sudden exclamation was heard that took every eye from the whale. With a start, all glared at dark Ahab, who was surrounded by 5 dusky phantoms that seemed fresh formed out of air. That concludes chapter 47 of The Whale, or Moby Dick, by Herman Melville. So, a sighting of a whale. I don't think we've had a sighting of a whale that was acted on yet this voyage. They haven't necessarily said they haven't seen any whales yet, or that this is the first whale, but it's the first one that I think is being described in action. So yeah, those phantoms are actually mobs from Minecraft, because Ahab, as Centauratron points out, hasn't slept in days. But we knew that. Okay. So any thoughts from anybody on this chapter? It's very poetic. Everybody in their reverie. Just doing their work. Queequeg and Ishmael working on part of their little harpoon boat. Audrey Holt will have to see. This is a cliffhanger. Because readers at the time wouldn't have necessarily known, oh, wait, oh, is this a book with ghosts in it? Right? Like, when people read Dracula for the first time, there weren't, like, you gotta keep in mind, like, you know, there weren't, like, even though there were vampires in folklore, there weren't vampire stories in novels when Dracula was written, you know? So, like, back then, it was kind of like anything goes. You could, you know, there wasn't as much genre definition, you know? Like, you could have a chapter end with, and then 5 ghosts show up. And the reader's like, oh, okay. This book has ghosts in it. Okay, cool. Huh. Didn't expect that. Wait, he can turn into a wolf? Oh, that's neat. Yeah, it's nice to see Queequeg and Ishmael hanging out. Because this has been this was very Ahab-centric for a few chapters, and now we're getting back to our dynamic duo. Okay. Any other thoughts people want to share before we jump into chapter 48? Oh, I guess this is the first lowering of the boats, because the chapter's called the first lowering. Uh-oh. So I need to post the new what we're reading. What we're rereading. No, what we're reading. New what we're reading link is getting pinned. I'm glad you're enjoying the voices. Pin message, replace pin message. Okay. Chapter 48. The first lowering. The phantoms, for so they then seemed, were flitting on the other side of the deck, and, with a noiseless celerity, were casting loose tackles and bands of the boat which swung there. This boat had always been deemed one of the spare boats, though technically called the captain's, on account of it hanging from the starboard quarter. The figure that now stood by its bows was tall and swart, with one white tooth evilly protruding from its steel-like lips. A rumpled Chinese jacket of black cotton funerally invested him, with wide black trousers of the same dark stuff. But strangely crowning this ebonness was a glistening white-plated turban, the living hair braided and coiled round and round upon his head. Less swart in aspect, the companions of this figure were of that vivid complexion peculiar to some of the natives of the Manilas, who some honest white mariners supposed were the paid spies and secret confidential agents on the water of the devil, their lord, whose counting room they supposed to be elsewhere. Oh, don't worry, you guys. Okay, I try not to break from the book too much, but okay, don't worry, you guys. It's not ghosts. It's just H.P. Lovecraft type racism. Oh no, the real terror is more people who aren't from Europe. Okay, yeah. This is a very dated story, and there's going to be stuff like that in it. It's not great, but you know, you might remember in a previous chapter, they were like, "Oh man, I think that I think there might be more. I think there might be stowaways or somebody else on board, right?" It sounds like we have found the additional crew. But yeah. It's very Lovecraftian for it to be like, "Oh no, there's demons. Oh wait, it's just people from a different island." Okay, we're gonna get back into it, but sorry. Like, there's certain things that I can't just, like, read without commenting on. You know, it's important not to completely erase stuff like this from literature and culture. I am going to soften some of the language if I think it's particularly bad, but I'm doing that on the fly. I haven't pre-edited any of this, so yeah. Once again, I am not endorsing any of this. Also, welcome, Small Cats. That's the person I was talking about who interviewed me earlier. So, yeah, that interview sometime in the next few weeks. Keep an eye out for that. Some passages do require live commentary. Thank you, Elodie. I really try to not do too much live commentary. I try to read the book as much as I can. But sometimes the authors do something that's particularly super racist, and I have to just be like, not great. Okay. So welcome, Small Cats. We're dealing with the difficulties of reading public domain books. I've had people be like, Joe, you should read this book from 10 years ago because it doesn't have all these problems. And I'm like, but it's in copyright, and that author wouldn't license it to me for less than $40,000, and I'm not going to get that kind of money. So, yeah, we're just going to complain about racism and move on. Okay. Centauratron writes, racism? In a book from the 1800s? Yeah, I know they don't mention that in schools, but it was a problem back then. I'm pretty sure they actually do still mention it in schools, at least around here. But anyway, yeah, so. That one weirdo says, how do you read and play at the same time? Well, I spent a decade reading chat while playing. I can read a book while playing, too. Only if I limit myself to super easy, straightforward stuff like, you know, working on, what do you call these? Terraforming is pretty easy to do while reading. I can't, like, do complex redstone or anything. That would mess me up. Yeah, Dracula has some of this, too. It's not great, but, like, it's important for us to understand the evolution of literature, the evolution of culture, the evolution of society. We can't just bury these books. Brecourt, I agree. Racism is still a problem. It's taken different forms than it did back then, especially in culture and media. But yeah, we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna get to the bed in Minecraft first, though, just so we can start this next passage without with an empty inventory. Because, like I said, inventory management is one of the harder things to do while reading. Okay. LED says, sometimes when you're reading an old book, you just run into something that makes you want to look into the camera like you're in the show The Office. Yeah. That's a pretty apt metaphor there. Okay. So. While the wondering ship's company were gazing upon these strangers, Ahab cried out to the white-turbaned old man at their head. All ready there, Fadala? Ready, was the half-hissed reply. Lower away then, do you hear? Shouting across the deck. Lower away there, I say. Such was the thunder of his voice that, spite of their amazement, the men sprang over the rail, and the sheaves whirled round in their blocks with a wallow. The three boats dropped into the sea, while, with a dexterous, off-handed daring, unknown in other vocations, the sailors, goat-like, leaped down the rolling ship's side into the tossed boats below. Hardly had they pulled out from under the ship's lee when a fourth keel, coming from the windward side, pulled around under the stern and showed the five strangers rowing Ahab, who, standing erect in the stern, loudly hailed Starbuck, Stubb, and Flask to spread themselves widely so as to cover a large expanse of water. But with all their eyes riveted upon Fadala and his crew, the inmates of the other boats obeyed not the command. Captain Ahab, said Starbuck. Spread yourselves! Give way, all four boats! Thou, Flask, pull out more to leeward! Aye, aye, sir, cheerily cried the little king post, sweeping round his great steering oar. Lay back! Addressing his crew. There again! There she blows right ahead, boys! Lay back! Wow, okay, yeah, hold on. There's a lot of racism in here. So yeah, they're talking about the strangers here. Never heed yonder boys, Archie. Oh, I don't mind 'em, sir. I knew it all before now. Didn't I hear 'em in the hold? And didn't I tell Cabico here of it? What say ye, Cabico? There are stowaways, Mr. Flask. Pull, my fine hearts alive. Pull, my children, pull, my little one. Drawingly and soothingly sighed Stubb to his crew, some of whom still showed signs of uneasiness. Why don't you break your backbones, my boys? What is it you stare at? Those chaps in yonder boat? There are only 5 more hands to come help us. Never mind from where. The more the merrier. Pull, then, do pull. Never mind the brimstone. Devils are good fellows enough. So, there you are now. That's the stroke for 1,000 pounds. That's the stroke to sweep the stakes. Hurrah for the gold cup of sperm oil, my heroes. 3 cheers, men. All hearts alive. Easy. Don't be in a hurry. Why don't you snap your oars, you rascals? Bite something, you dogs. So then, softly. That's it. Long and strong. Give way there. Give way. The devil fetch you, ragamuffin rapscallions. Ye are all asleep. Stop snoring, you sleepers, and pull, will you? Pull, can't you? Pull, won't ye? Why, in the name of gudgeons and ginger cakes, don't you pull? Pull and break something. Pull and start your eyes out. Here! Whipping out the sharp knife from his girdle, every mother's son of ye drew his knife and pulled with the blade between his teeth. That's it. Now, you do something. That looks like it, my steel bits. Starter, my silver spoons. Starter, my marlin spikes. Stubbs' exordium to his crew is given here at large because he had a rather peculiar way of talking to them in general, and especially in inculcating the religion of Rowan. But you must not suppose from this specimen of his sermonizing that he ever flew into downright passions with his congregation. Not at all. And therein persisted his chief peculiarity. He would say the most horrific things to his crew in a tone so strangely compounded of fun and fury. And the fury seemed so calculated merely as a spice to the fun that no oarsman could hear such queer invocations without pulling for dear life, and yet pulling for the mere joke of the thing. Besides, he all the time looked so easy and indolent himself, so loungingly managed his steering oar, and so broadly gaped, open-mouthed at times, at the mere sight of such a yawning commander, by sheer force of contrast, acted like a charm upon the crew. Then again, Stubb was one of those odd sort of humorists, whose jollity is sometimes so curiously ambiguous as to put all inferrers on their guard in the matter of obeying them. In obedience to a sign from Ahab, Starbuck was now pulling obliquely across Stubbs' bow, and when for a moment the 2 boats were pretty near each other, Stubb hailed the mate. "Mr. Starbuck, larboard boat there, ahoy! A word with ye, sir, if ye please."
Hello,
returned Starbuck, turning round not a single inch as he spoke, still earnestly but whisperingly urging his crew, his face set like a flint from Stubbs. "What do you think of those boys, sir?"
"Smuggled on board somehow before the ship sailed. Strong boys,
in a whisper to his crew, then speaking out loud again.
A sad business, Mr. Stubb. See there, my lads." But never mind, Mr. Stubb. All for the best. Let all your crew pull strong, come what will. Spring, my men, spring! There's hogsheads of spurn ahead, Mr. Stubb, and that's what you came for. Pull, my boys. Sperm's the play. This, at least, is duty. Duty and profit in hand.
I thought as much, soliloquized Stubb when the boats diverged. As soon as I clapped eyes on 'em, I thought so. And that's what he went into the afterhold for so often, as Doughboy long suspected. They were hidden down there. The white whale's at the bottom of it. Well, so be it. Can't be helped. All right. Give way, men. It ain't the white whale today. Give way. Now the advent of these outlandish strangers at such a critical instant as the lowering of the boats from the deck, this had not unreasonably awakened a sort of superstitious amazement in some of the ship's company. But Archie, fancying discovery, having sometime previously got abroad among them, though indeed not credited then, this had in some small measure prepared them for the event. It took off the extreme edge of their wonder. And so, what with all this, and Stubbs' confident way of accounting for their appearance, they were, for the time, freed from their superstitious surmisings, though the affair still left abundant room for all manner of wild conjectures as to dark Ahab's precise agency in the matter from the beginning. For me, I silently recalled the mysterious shadows I had seen creeping on board the Pequod during the dim Nantucket dawn, as well as the enigmatical hintings of the unaccountable Elijah. Meantime, Ahab, out of hearing of his officers, having sighted the furthest to windward, was still ranging ahead of the other boats, a circumstance bespeaking how potent a crew was pulling him. Those creatures of his seemed all steel and whalebone. Like 5 trip hammers, they rose and fell with the regular strokes of strength, which periodically started the boat along the water like a horizontal burst boiler out of a Mississippi steamer. As for Fadalla, who had been seen pulling the harpooner's oar, he had thrown aside his black jacket and displayed his naked chest with the whole part of his body above the gunwale, clearly cut against the alternating depressions of the watery horizon, while at the other end of the boat, Ahab, with one arm, like a fencer's, thrown back, half backward into the air, as if to counterbalance any tendency to trip. Ahab was seen steadily managing his steering oar, as in 1,000 boat lowerings ere the white whale had torn him. All at once, the outstretched arm gave a peculiar motion, and then remained fixed, while the boat's 5 oars were seen simultaneously peaked. Boat and crew sat motionless on the sea. Instantly, the 3 spread boats in the rear paused on their way. The whales had irregularly settled bodily down into the blue, thus giving no distantly discernible token of the movement, though from his closer vicinity, Ahab had observed it.
"Every man, look out along his oars!" cried Starbuck. "Thou, Queequeg, stand up!"
Nimbly springing up on the triangular raised box in the bow, Queequeg stood erect there, and with intensely eager eyes gazed off toward the spot where the chase had last been descried. Likewise, upon the extreme stern of the boat, where it was also triangularly platformed level with the gunwale, Starbuck himself was seen coolly and adroitly balancing himself to the jerking tossings of the ship of a craft, and silently eyeing the vast blue eye of the sea. Not very far distant, Flask's boat was also lying breathlessly still, its commander recklessly standing upon the top of the loggerhead, a stout sort of post rooted in the keel, and rising some 2 feet above the level of the stern platform. It is used for catching turns with the whale line. Its top is not more spacious than the palm of a man's hand, and, in standing upon such a base as that, Flask seemed perched at the masthead of some ship which had sunk to all but her trucks. But the little king post was small and short, and at the same time the little king post was full of a large and tall ambition, so that this loggerhead standpoint of his did by no means satisfy the king post. "I can't see 3 seas off. Tip us up an oar there, and let me on to that." Upon this, Daggoo, with either hand upon the gunwale to steady his way, swiftly slid aft, and then, erecting himself, volunteered his lofty shoulders for a pedestal.
"Good a masthead as any, sir. Will you mount?"
"That I will, and thank ye very much, my fine fellow. Only I wish you 50 feet taller." Whereupon, planting his feet firmly against 2 opposite planks of the boat, the gigantic Daggoo, stooping a little, presented his flat palm to Flask's foot, and then, putting Flask's hand on his hearse-plumed head and bidding him spring as he himself should toss, with one dexterous fling, landed the little man, high and dry, upon his shoulders. And here was Flask now standing, Daggoo, with one arm lifted, furnishing him with a breastband to lean against and steady himself by. At any time, it is a strange sight to see with what wondrous habitude of unconscious skill the whaleman will maintain an erect posture in his boat, even when pitched about by the most riotously perverse and cross-running seas. Still more strange to see him perched upon the loggerhead itself under such circumstances. But the sight of little Flask mounted upon gigantic Daggoo was yet more curious, for sustaining himself with a cool, indifferent, unthought-of majesty, the noble Daggoo to every roll of the sea harmoniously rolled his fine form. On his broad back, flaxen-haired Flask seemed a snowflake. The bearer looked nobler than the rider. Though truly vivacious, tumultuous, ostentatious little Flask would now and then stamp with impatience, but not one added heave did he thereby give to Daggoo's lordly chest. So I have seen passion and vanity stamping the living, magnanimous earth, but the earth did not alter her tides and seasons for that. Meanwhile, Stubb, the third mate, betrayed no such far-gazing solicitude. The whales might have made one of their regular soundings, not a temporary dive from mere fright. And if that were the case, Stubb, as his wont in such cases it seems, was resolved to solace the languishing interval with his pipe. He withdrew it from his hatband, where he always wore it aslant like a feather. He loaded it and rammed home the loading with his thumb end, but hardly had he ignited his match across the sandpaper of his hand when Tashtego, his harpooner, whose eyes had been setting to windward like 2 fixed stars, suddenly dropped like light from his erect attitude. To his seat, and crying out in a quick frenzy of hurry,
"Down all, and give way! There they are!"
To a landsman, no whale, nor any sign of a herring, would have been visible at that moment. Nothing but a troubled bit of greenish white water, and thin, scattered puffs of vapor hovering over it, and suffusingly blowing off to leeward, like the confused scud from right rolling billows. The air around suddenly vibrated and tingled, as it were, like the air over intensely heated plates of iron. Beneath this atmospheric waving and curling, and partially beneath a thin layer of water also, the whales were swimming, seen in advance of all other indications. The puffs of vapor they spouted seemed their forerunning couriers and detached flying outriders. All four boats were now in pursuit of that keen. All four boats were now in keen pursuit of that one spot of troubled water and air. But it bade fair to outstrip them. It flew on and on as a mass of interblending bubbles borne down a rapid stream from the hills.
Pull, pull, my good boys,
cried Starbuck in the lowest possible but intensest concentrated whisper to his men, while the sharp fixed glance from his eyes darted straight ahead of the bow, almost seemed as two visible needles in two unerring binnacle compasses. He did not say much to his crew, nor did his crew say anything to him. Only the silence of the boat was at intervals startlingly pierced by one of his peculiar whispers, now harsh with command, now soft with entreaty. How different the loud little king post. Sing out and say something, my hearties! Roar and pull, my thunderbolts! Beach me on their backs, boys! Only do that for me, I'll sign you over! I'll sign over to you my Martha's Vineyard plantation, boys, including my wife and children, boys. Lay me on, oh Lord, but I shall go stark staring mad. See that white water? And, so shouting, he pulled his hat from his head and stamped up and down on it, then, picking it up, flirted it far off upon the sea, and finally fell to rearing and plunging in the boat's stern like a crazed colt from the prairie. Oh, look at that chap now, philosophically drawled Stubb, who, with his unlighted short pipe mechanically retained between his teeth, at a short distance followed after. He's got fits, that flask has. Fits, yes, give him fits, that's the very word. Pitch fits into him merrily, hearts alive, pudding for supper, you know. Merry's the word. Pull, babes, pull, sucklings, pull all. But what devil are you hurrying about? Softly, and steadily, my men. Only pull and keep pulling, nothing more. Crack all your backbones and bite your knives in two. That's all. Take it easy. Why don't you take it easy, I say? Burst all your livers and lungs. But what it was that Ahab said to that crew of his, these words are best omitted here, for you live under the blessed light of evangelical land. Only the infidel sharks in the audacious seas may give ear to such words, when, with tornado brow and eyes of red murder and foam-glued lips, Ahab leaped after his prey. Meanwhile, all the boats tore on. The repeated specific allusions of Flask to that whale, as he called the fictitious monster which he declared to be insistently tantalizing its boat's bow with its tail, these allusions of his were at times so vivid and lifelike. For the oarsmen must put out... so vivid and lifelike that they would cause some one or two of his men to snatch a fearful look over the shoulder. But this was against all rule. For the oarsmen must put out their eyes and ram a skewer through their necks, usage pronouncing they must have no organs but ears, and no limbs but arms in these critical moments. It was a sight full of quick wonder and awe. The vast swells of the omnipotent sea, the surging, hollowing roar they made as they rolled along the 8 gunnels like gigantic bowls in a boundless bowling green. The brief, suspended agony of the boat as it would tip for an instant on the knife-like edge of the sharper waves. That almost seemed threatening to cut it in two. The sudden profound dip into the watery glens and hollows, the keen spurrings and goadings to gain the top of the opposite hill, the headlong sled-like slide down its other side, all these, with the cries of the headsmen and harpooneers, and the shuddering gasps of the oarsmen, with the wondrous sight of the ivory Pequod bearing down upon her boats with outstretched sails, like a wild hen after her screaming brood. All this was thrilling. Not the raw, new recruit, marching from the bosom of his wife into the fever heat of his first battle. Not the dead man's ghost encountering the first unknown phantom in the other world. Neither of these can feel stranger and stronger emotions than that man does, who does for the first time finds himself pulling into the charmed, churned circle of the hunted sperm whale. The dancing white water made by the chase was now becoming more and more visible, owing to the increasing darkness of the dun cloud shadows flung upon the sea. The jets of vapor no longer blended, but tilted everywhere to right and left. The whales seemed separating at their wakes. The boats were pulled more apart. Starbuck giving chase to 3 whales running dead to leeward. Our sail was now set, and with the still rising wind, we rushed along, the boat going with such madness through the water that the lee oars could scarcely be worked rapidly enough to avoid being torn from the rowlocks. Soon we were running through a suffusing wide veil of mist, neither ship nor boat to be seen.
"Give way, men,"
whispered Starbuck, drawing still further aft the sheet of his sail.
"There's time to kill a fish yet, before a squall comes. There's Whitewater again, close to spring."
Soon after, 2 cries in quick succession on each side of us denoted that the other boats had got fast, but hardly were they o'er when, with lightning-like hurtling whisper, Starbuck said,
"Stand up!"
and Queequeg, harpoon in hand, sprang to his feet. Though not one of the oarsmen was then facing the life and death peril so close to them ahead, yet with their eyes on the intense countenance of the mate in the stern of the boat, they knew that the imminent instant had come. They heard, too, an enormous wallowing sound, as of 50 elephants stirring in their litter. Meanwhile, the boat was still booming through the mist, with waves curling and hissing around us like the erected crests of enraged serpents.
"That's his hump! There! Give it to him!"
whispered Starbuck. A short, rushing sound leaped out of the boat. It was the darted iron of Queequeg. Then, all in one welded commotion, came an invisible push from astern, while forward the boat seemed striking on a ledge. The sail collapsed and exploded. A gush of scalding vapor shot up nearby. Something rolled and trembled like an earthquake beneath us. The whole crew were half suffocated as they were tossed helter-skelter into the white curdling cream of the squall. Squall, whale, and harpoon all blended together, and the whale, merely grazed by the iron, escaped. Though completely swamped, the boat was nearly unharmed. Swimming round it, we picked up the floating oars and, lashing them across the gunwale, tumbled back to our places. There, we sat up to our knees in the sea, the water covering every rib and plank, so that to our downward-gazing eyes the suspended craft seemed a coral boat grown up to us from the bottom of the ocean. The wind increased to a howl. The waves dashed their bucklers together. The whole squall roared, forked, and crackled around us like a white fire upon a prairie, in which, unconsumed, we were burning, immortal in these jaws of death. In vain we hailed the other boats, as well roar to the live coals down the chimney of a flaming furnace as hail those boats in the storm. Meanwhile, the driving scud, rack, and mist grew darker with the shadows of night. No sign of the ship could be seen. The rising sea forbade all attempts to bail out the boat. The oars were useless as propellers, now performing the office of life preservers. So, cutting the lashing of the waterproof match keg, after many failures, Starbuck contrived to ignite the lamp in the lantern. Then, stretching it on a waif pole, handed it to Queequeg as the standard-bearer of this forlorn hope. There, then, he sat, holding up that imbecile candle in the heart of that almighty forlornness. There, then, he sat, the sign and symbol of a man without faith, hopelessly holding up hope in the midst of despair. Wet, drenched through, and shivering cold, despairing of ship and boat, we lifted up our eyes as the dawn came on. The mist still spread over the sea. The empty lantern lay crushed in the bottom of the boat. Suddenly, Queequeg started to his feet, hollowing his hand to his ear. We all heard a faint creaking, as of ropes and yards hitherto muffled by the storm. The sound came nearer and nearer. The thick mists were dimly parted by a huge, vague form. Affrighted, we all sprang into the sea as the ship at last loomed into view, bearing right down upon us, with a distance of not much more than its length. Floating on the waves, we saw the abandoned boat, as for one instant it was tossed and gaped beneath the ship's bows like a chip at the base of a cataract, and then the vast hull rolled over it, and was seen no more, till it came up weltering astern. Again we swam for it, were dashed against it by the seas, and were at last taken up, and safely landed on board. Ere the squall came close to, the other boats had cut loose from their fish and returned to the ship in good time. The ship had given us up, but was still cruising. If haply it might light upon some token of our perishing, an oar or a lance pole. And that concludes chapter 48 of Moby Dick, or the Whale, by Herman Melville. Welcome, Wingless Raiders! Glad you could join us. I see we got Starlight Jason, Wingless, any other Raiders? Riflewood, maybe? Glad you could join us. Yeah, I don't normally interrupt the middle of a chapter for, alerts, but I do appreciate the raid. I appreciate any tips that might roll in. If you are enjoying the stream, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. We are $9 away from our next face camera expansion milestone. Welcome, Silly Bird, in the YouTube chat. So, anybody have any thoughts about the previous chapter, chapter 48? Okay, we're just kind of clearing out some of this here. I feel like I want to ender pearl up to there and wipe out some of this down here. Kind of carve this inward a little. Like, this isn't carved inward enough for my tastes. So we're going to Like, we want to have some curve to it, you know? Precourt says, I like the image of him holding up the lantern, like hopelessly holding up hope in the midst of despair. Well, yeah, and it's him holding up an unlit lantern. He can't even get the thing lit, so he's just holding it up anyway. We just finished chapter 48, Fallstar. Mailman Dave says, I love the line, immortal in the jaws of death. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Centauritron says, I was so used to Ishmael just going on rants about whales and their colors and shapes and stuff. I wasn't prepared for something to actually happen. Yeah, this is a book where things happen. I know. John says, when you read by yourself, are the voices that animated in your head? Not necessarily. Okay, so we're going to have to clear out basically all of this. I feel like this... I don't know why these guys are here. I feel like they should be in the rest of the village, but maybe the rest of the village doesn't have enough beds, and so that's why they're... Maybe the rest of the village needs more... We can kind of slide this one this way. I think we're going to go and grab some more beds real quick. And then we're going to get those guys out of there. Oh, dang it. White Fang says, how'd you come to the decision to read this specific book? Well, last season we read Dracula, and then I agonized over this decision for like months. And then we finally picked something. And then somebody was like, well, wait a minute. While you were picking that, you kept talking about Moby Dick. Why don't you just read Moby Dick? And then I was like, yeah, okay, you're right. So it's not a good, there's not a good process. It's not a good process. Welcome, Razor Randon. Welcome, NJ. Okay, what do we need? Oh, this is not... We're trying to standardize all of these as well. Okay. Broken stuff we're going to put in here for right now. We're going to get the functional ones out. Okay. Actually, we want the fireworks back, but we'll come back to that in a minute. What was I going to pull out? I was going to pull out bed making stuff. We want to make beds. I think we need at least 4 more beds for that village. So, wait, we've got pre-made planks. So let's take these pre-made planks. And we need wool. Okay, so we'll take some wool here. Oh, can I not make beds with named things? Okay. It's fine. Whatever. I did it anyway. Okay. So we're doing some terraforming while we work on Moby Dick. But yeah, this whole area here has to go. We can fit parts of the village in there. But, I don't think this room can really fit an extra bed. This one I think can. I'm not sure about this one. How would we organize that? Like, maybe one here and one Can they get into beds like that, or is that one gonna be inaccessible? I don't know. Or does that furnace need to be accessed? Maybe it does. Like, I think this might work, but I don't know. Can they climb over the beds? If I just put like an extra bed there, will they walk around them or over them? This house looks so deep, but then it's not. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to destroy that little pen over there. And hopefully they'll all just, you know, go sleep indoors. They'll find the rest of the village, right? I feel like they should. Okay. I wonder if they randomly climbed up this, jumped over the fence, and then ended up in there on their own. Because I don't remember there being a bunch of villagers in that structure, but now there is. So without the torches, this should freeze and be easier to remove. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe not. We'll let that freeze and then remove it. Okay. Whew. Well, this is not going well. Freeze, dang it. Oh, wait. We can just put a box there. Oh, we're all 4 of those. Okay. Telix says, will it freeze without a block next to it? I don't know. Well, next problem anyway. We have just dealt with this. Deal with it. Okay, I will. Gosh. How's inventory going? Okay. Welcome, Alicia Capisha. Glad you could join us. That was just a random light, not a marker. sun setting right when I'm getting good momentum over here. Gotta go to bed and lay my head down and dream. Hey Ziggy Gamer, we just got done reading 3 chapters of Moby Dick. So I was just focusing on the game for a second, letting my voice recover briefly. Also, nobody was really asking any questions or whatever, so I figured everybody just kind of needed a few minutes to reflect on the novel. Okay. We reflect on the day. Do 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 do. Dee 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 dee.
We ponder the sea.
Okay. Whew. Actually, I guess this one should go in that box now that I'm looking at it. Next problem. Have a good night, Elodie. Okay, this is seeming a lot more flyable than it was before we cleared out so much of it. We're gonna maybe wipe a little bit of this out along the curve here. Okay. There we go. That looks a lot better. I'm going to clean up this bit here. Okay, that's looking better. That bit here is a little bit low. Small Cat Z says, it's interesting comparing older novels like this to newer ones, how descriptive they are. Some of these older books will ramble on to set the scene for what seems like ages. Well, it's important to note that, like, they didn't just have pictures of things that were easily accessible back then, you know? And so, like, you know, the author can't just be like, well, if somebody doesn't know what a whaleboat looks like, they can just check their phones, you know? This is a very a time when like the book itself has to be more self-contained. It wasn't even practical for people to go look stuff up in a dictionary, and so a lot of times they would use 2 or 3 words in hopes that the reader would know one of the 3 words or one of the 2 words. Okay. Very dramatic. Okay, this is going to be a whole thing to clear all this out. Centauratron's copy of Moby Dick actually has pictures of a whaler in it. I mean, in fairness, the physical copy I have also has pictures of whaleboats in it. But that's not necessarily true of every novel from the time period. Or like these later editions might have additional illustrations. Like the Evan Dom illustrations were only done like less than a decade ago. So like if I pull up Moby Dick illustrated Evan Dom, where's the archive? View archive. Is this, which chapter is this? The Grand Armada. That's a different chapter. I'm trying to see if there's any good pictures of the whaleboats relatively early on. And I'm not sure that there are. But yeah, the small boats. Let's see. Oh, is this it? Oh, nope, that's from the squid chapter. It does have a picture of the small boats, but we'll get to the squid chapter later. So I'm not going to post that yet. Where did I cut into the ledge there? Ah, there it is. So let's come up here real quick. And we're just going to come up here and put in some of these. Stone. Grass. And dirt on this side. And then other random stuff up here. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so when we roll into here, if we dig straight up, does that get us all the way to the sunlight? Close. Cool. Badger says, lol, I will not be doing that again in a hurry. What did you do? Did you just drop something really loud and I didn't hear it because I had headphones on? The way you're talking, it sounds like I should know what you just did. Or do you mean walking out in the feels like 104-degree weather? Are you still feeling rough from our walk earlier? Unclear antecedent, Badger. I went outside with a cider and a camping chair thinking the storm was miles off, but it was not. 2 minutes after I sat down, there were 60-mile-per-hour gusts and a downpour. Oh no, I can't hear it down here in the garage. I take it you got back inside safely? We didn't lose a chair or a table in the wind? Do I need to go down the street looking for a chair? Might be a few blocks off by now. Apparently a squall sprung up here, too. Oh, we are out of range of this beacon. Okay, okay, so presumably the chair and table, if you brought a table out, got back in. Didn't blow away. I don't have to end the stream and go sprint after them. Chair's inside. You're suspiciously silent about the table. The cider's inside. I'm suspecting I might have to go find a table later. Okay, table is still out, but the windows died down. Okay, so the table didn't blow away. Yeah, we shouldn't probably leave the table out when there's 60-mile-an-hour gusts. It's not tied down. And it's not heavy enough to... If it gets caught, it's got enough of a sail area, it could just go. It's too wet to bring in. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So I think I need to go up there and remove a lot of this grass. That's not the same as being up there, is it? Whoops. Is there lightning and thunder? I can't hear anything down in the garage. Should I be looking at Nashville severe weather? I mean, I basically finished reading for the night. I don't think don't have another chapter in me. Let's just do last call for tips. We are $9 away from our first face camera expansion milestone. If you enjoyed this Moby Dick stream, tips are welcome via paypal.me/showhills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay. Welcome, Tyzio. Doing well, just getting some terraforming in. Apparently there's a storm incoming, so I'm going to have to unplug the computer soon, so we're wrapping up in about 5 minutes. Last call for tips. Chloe the Great and Powerful tips 14 and says, yay for whales. Thank you, Chloe the Great and Powerful. That is going to get us 4 past our next face camera expansion milestone. So here we go. It's time to please direct your attention down here to slot 9 where I'm putting the hot in the hot bar so I can say howdy, y'all. Crow Hills here, expanding as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. Dee-da-dee-da-dee, dee-da-dee-da-dee-dee-dee. Oh, and the wind and rain is boiling hot. Of course it is. Ugh. Stupid Nashville weather. Hey, we we got a tip rolling in. Let's see who that's from. It's from Wandering Mask, tipping 3. Thank you very much, Wandering Mask. That puts us 13 away for the next Face Gamer expansion milestone. He says, thanks for reading, Joe. Looking forward to hearing more again next week. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. That put, where was I? 13 away from the next expansion. Yes. Okay. Oh, no, we didn't want to remove that shelf yet. Dang it. Because we want to stand on that shelf and remove the stuff above me. That's the point of the shelf. The shelf life hadn't expired yet. Okay, inventory is looking pretty full, so it's time to run back over here and dump some of this off. Yeah, the wind earlier when we were out on our walk was like the hottest wind. It was so weird. Normally wind feels like it's cooling you, but it was this like hot, uncomfortable wind. Like it reminded me of being like near a fire in the summer. I was like, what is going on? Yeah, like a hairdryer. Yeah, it was weird. It was not a pleasant breeze earlier. Let's remove some blocks every day. Every way. Blocks, blocks, blocks. Blocks, blocks, blocks. Blocks, 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 blocks. Okay. So many blocks to remove. Do. Does Nashville get tornadoes? Yes. It's not as bad as some places, but... Okay, so this is going to be a weird part here. I'm going to need to pull this out along here for sure. People are asking if it's tornado weather. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. Twitter.com/NashSevereWeatherX. I feel like if it was tornado weather, Badger would have already told me. So... just a severe thunderstorm warning, it looks like. Yeah, severe thunderstorms, not tornadoes. We're okay. But yeah, I am going to want to get the computer unplugged before it actually gets bad. So we are wrapping up soon. Just giving a few minutes for the last tips to roll in. Sometimes PayPal is a little slow on weekends. I think they do maintenance or whatever because it's a lower traffic time. So we just give things a little bit of time to process. La da 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 do 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 do. La da 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 da. Okay. Hey, good for you making progress there, Audrey Holt. Glad you could push through. Okay. Do do do. Okay. So let's see here. Putting this stone up here. Putting the grass blocks in there. Putting the dirt blocks in here. And everything else over there. Bum bum. Okay, so we can just roll up here now. Whew. So much to do. Do do do. La da 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 da. Yeah, this needs to be cleaned up too. Do I want to do that now, though? Probably should get started at least. Chests. Whoa. La da 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 da. Dun dun dun. Chests. Whoa. La da 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 da. Bum bum bum. Da 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 da. Dee da dee dee da dee dee da. Okay. Bum bum bum. Bada bada bum 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 bada. Bum bum bum. Bada bada bum 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 bum. Oh, that was not a smart way to do that. Why would I think that was a good idea? It's fine. Should fill the entire inventory with the same block before running off. Okay. And then when that's done, then we grab like, oh, all of something else. Okay. Dirt. Grass. Gravel. Additional dirt. Other stuffs. Da da da. And we can just break this chest, and I think we're good on this cleanup process. Yay. Oops. Bye, rocket. Okay. Ooh, all right. All right. That is a progress. Arguably, we've made progress on this whole thing. Let's fly up here real quick. These tunnels should look better now that I've cleared out some of this. Maybe it's not too noticeable. I thought it would be more noticeable than it was. It's fine. Grumble, grumble. Like, yeah, once I really start kind of going into... Yeah, okay. See, yeah, we're going to clean this up. Still got a few minutes before the storm hits. The lightning part of it. But yeah, if we have this kind of evenly sweep into here more, where we clear out like that whole... Murph says, Joe, your green screen is misbehaving. Ah, it's fine. It's Saturday night. Just let the green screen relax. Oh no, people can see books. Whatever will we do? where is the next segment of the road here? I feel like I should have hit it already. Oh, it's way down here. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to probably clear and shave out a few layers of this as we go. This whole part's going. And probably more too. But for right now, this part's going. Howdy, Mr. Hardluck. We're kind of in the tail end of the stream here. I'm just trying to frantically remove as many blocks as I can before the storm hits. Because I thought I was further along on this than I was. And I'm not, I want it to look cool when people come over here. We're going to have more people over here the next few days. Cub's doing a lot of stuff at his labyrinth. People are going to be flying around. So we got to get this looking good for our visitors. For when we have guests. Also, Etho needs more stone. He told me with his eyes. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to remove this part here, too. Cannot let Etho down. Exactly. You guys know how it is. Okay. So flying over this. Yeah, this entire landslide is going to have to slide. This is not steep enough. This might be work for another day, you guys. In my head, I had an idea of what this was going to look like when we got done with the stream tonight. And it's definitely not there. But like we talked about... Oh, we didn't talk about that. Like I talked about with other people recently. Perfect is the opposite of done, according to Dave Kellett, and Brad Geiger, and Chris Straub, and Scott Kurtz. So, at some point, I just need to wrap up the stream, even if we haven't completely finished everything. With Cub bringing more people to the area, if somebody's like, whoa, I want to fly around and see some of this, I just, want it to be good, Some hermits only come over here every 2 or 3 months, And so when they do come over here, I want it to look great. Fantastic, even. Mr. Hardluck says, I played through the Battle Train demo last night, and it was just as fun to play as it was watching you play it. I'm glad, yeah. I haven't actually played the public-facing demo, because I was told it was more polished, but also kind of more locked down than the early build they gave me. So I'm waiting kind of for the next behind-the-scenes build. Probably to do my next Battle Train video or stream. So maybe we'll see something like that in the months ahead. So much stone. It's like I can. What's frustrating is I know I'm making progress. Like I'm making progress, and so I don't want to stop making progress, but I need to because the storm's coming, and I got to get everything unplugged. So let's do. I'm gonna do a check. No tips at this point. We got all of them. Thank you everybody who supported the show. Okay. So we need to make sure we don't raid any other Nashville streamers because they're about to get hit by the same storm that I'm getting hit by. And that doesn't help anybody. It looks like Jono is doing some sort of music mixing. This is Rendog's brother, I think. We're going to raid Jono Smithers. When you get over there, our raid message is, howdy y'all, Joe Hills raid here. And until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring. Stop streaming, stopping the stream. It's gotten harder to stop the stream recently because of all these changes. I gotta click like 8 things. There's one of them. There's 2, 3. I think we did it.